Hello and welcome to the Brutal Iron Gym podcast, where our goal is to cut through the BS and deliver the brutal truth about topics related to health and happiness. So today's topic is trainer education, and the title is When to Increase Prices. So recently I did a trainer consultation where basically someone who's in is a personal trainer, they call or email or we Skype, we figure out some way to communicate, and we just kind of share ideas, discuss their questions, and hopefully provide some information that helps them in their career. So I've been personal training now for 18 years, and I've owned Brutal Iron Gym now for 9 years, and it's been my kind of sole source of income, and I'm relatively good at it. So it's sometimes people will ask just kind of some questions as to how they can get to where I'm at. So I do train personal trainers, and that's where some of the consultations come from. I also have just outside trainers who listen to the podcast contact us. We do other services where we do ghostwriting for programming, and just some other odds and ends where if somebody's a personal trainer and they're running into some issues and or want some advice, they can always reach out. So our email is brutalirongym@gmail.com, and you can always reach out to us there if you'd like to do a consultation or just have some questions. So this person had some questions, and they're growing their business. And right now they're kind of feeling overwhelmed, burned out, and just kind of struggling. And they're trying to find ways to handle that stress better. And one of the things we talked about when we were talking about their situation and what is stressing them out was that they were overworked. So they worked harder than what their income showed, and there was a discrepancy between what they were charging versus what they were doing. So they were charging a lot less than the service that they were providing. So they were training the person, they were writing nutrition and training programming. Now, the nutrition stuff was more like suggestions because the person doesn't have a nutrition degree. But they were trying to give their best suggestions. They said, clients kept asking all the time, so they wanted to have information. So that was one of the things that we actually talked about was how could they improve what they had suggested to their clients. So I sent them a list of podcasts, sent some handouts and some stuff that they could hand to their clients and have a little more confidence in the quality of the information, but then also be able to give more of that information to the client. And one of the ways we talked about it is they should be the one providing that information. So even if providing the information is sharing resources from other people, it still kind of cements that trainer as that client's kind of avenue to information. So it reinforces your role as the trainer to be the one who connects them to the information, even if you're not the one giving the information. So that way, it just kind of helps with their confidence in you. It helps with your knowledge, of course, over time, and it just improves client longevity that you're able to get them the information, even if you're not the one answering it, if that makes sense. So we went through and we addressed that. And like I was saying before, was one of the things we got into was pricing. And I told them a little bit about my story, then I told them some advice that, they can take or leave, kind of just some things to think about as they consider increasing their price. So my history is when I first started personal training at Brutal Iron Gym, like I created the gym. So I had to sign the lease papers, put in all the mats, put in the equipment and everything myself. So when I first started training people here in this area, I grew up in Pennsylvania, and I was training people there off and on as I'd go through school. And then when I moved down to Rock Hill, South Carolina, I went to grad school for a master's in nutrition. I was a GA, so I taught for a couple of years. After I graduated, I continued to teach. I don't know what the teaching role name would have been, but I continued to teach exercise physiology and weight training and some other classes. And I was still training on the side. So the university had just started a program I helped with to get exercise science students experience as personal trainers. So we started that program, and kind of I was one of the first people to train for it, but the money was garbage. So I was still training outside of that service as well. And it was good money for a student, like a young learning student, but it wasn't good money for where I was at in my career. So I was still training on the side. And when I opened Brutal Iron Gym, I knew I had bills to pay. I had signed my name to a lot of things, so like loan, equipment lease, building to rent, all that stuff. So I was like, you know what, I'm going to work my ass off. I just need to get people in here. So I didn't want price to be an issue, so I lowballed my price just to drive people in, and then I figured the quality of the service would allow them to stay. And that would be the quality of the service the gym could provide and also the quality of the service I could provide. So I was a gym owner and a trainer. So I was also every other role, the mechanic, maintenance guy, the financial guy, everything. But I was playing both roles as the owner and the trainer. So you may be just a trainer at your gym, or you may own it as well. So the interesting part for me was just getting people in. So I started training people at $20 an hour. Now that is insanely, insanely, insanely cheap. So $20 an hour is incredibly cheap. And again, why I started that way was I had built my reputation in like Pennsylvania. I had trained some people on and off throughout the local area here in South Carolina, but I wasn't really established in the terms of like my own name running a business. So Brutal Iron Gym didn't have a reputation. So I had to create that. And one of the fastest ways to create that was just going to get more people in the building. And the more people I could kind of take hand, like by hand, and teach one on one my theories and thoughts and the way I wanted the people to train, I knew it would stick better. So rather than just open the doors, have people come in and do the same stupid shit they've been doing for years that didn't work, I wanted to actually teach people the right way to do things. So doing personal training at a low cost for me was worth it because I wanted to grow the gym. So it worked. I got up to 50 hours of in-client work a week really quick within the first like 2 or 3 months. So I was training 50 hours a week in person, face to face the whole time. So there's no walking on a treadmill during the hour bullshit. It's actually you're working with the person for the full hour. So when I started doing that, I was also writing the workouts that they should do outside of our sessions together. So for 50 hours a week, which may have been like say 30 to 35 people, because some of the people were doing twice a week, um, I was writing all of their training plans, all of the nutrition plans, and that was included in the $20 an hour session. So it was stupid, stupid, stupid cheap. Now, it worked really well. Like I said, I got up to 50 hours a week, plus everything else I was supposed to be doing for the business. It was killing me. It was a lot of work. And I even had clients offering to pay more because they could see how stretched thin I was and how like just stressed and kind of working my ass off I was. So they were like, hey, I'll pay $30 an hour. Some of them were saying I'll pay 40, some were saying 50. Just don't get rid of me. Like I know things are gonna have to change. You're not gonna be able to keep this pace forever, but I want to be the ones that stay. So I had people offering to pay more. People were even writing checks, even though I was saying no. They were still writing checks for more money. So I had really awesome, amazing people in my life at that time. I was very blessed. So I decided, and I was kind of reluctant because I went through the same fears any young trainer would be, in the sense that what if I lose people? What if I, don't make the money I need? What if this? What if that? What if this? What if that? So I finally increased to $30 an hour, and so that's 50% increase, and no one left. Not a single soul left. There was no reduction whatsoever in workload. Everyone stayed. So that was cool, but at the same time, I was like, shit. So, because I was still ridiculously overworked. So, I remember when I made that change, it was probably within 6 months. I went ahead and bumped up again to $40 an hour. So, I ended up doubling my price. And my hours did reduce at first. So, they went from 50 to 40. So I was still training 40 hours a week, still writing training plans, still writing nutrition plans, still being the financial guy, still being the maintenance guy, still everything. So when it reduced to 40, I actually then just had to start kind of cutting my hours of availability. So I could have increased my price more, and I'll explain in a second why I did. But at that time, I figured $40 an hour is pretty good. Let me just say I'm no longer available at certain times of the day, and I'll use that time to take care of myself, make sure I get my training in. So one of the first changes I made was I didn't take any clients before 10 a.m. So I had been training people from like I had people want to come in at 4:35, 6, 7, but that would have killed me because I was still training till 8 at night. So, and then I was still writing programs and doing everything else till about like 11, 12 at night. So I told everybody I'm not going to train before 10 a.m. That allowed me to actually do my own type of therapies and workouts. And at that time, I was struggling with some kind of nagging injuries or annoyances. So I had to really take that time to just kind of work on myself. So I remember for 30 days in a row, I did 2 hours of stretching and movement therapy every single day. So 60 hours in a month to just get me back to regular health. So my health took an absolute beating during those times, the years that I was kind of doing the 50 hour plus, because if you think of the entire workload of the business, it would have been, a 90, 100-hour week. So I took care of myself, just reduced my hours. That gave me more possibility to do other things. I started writing a newsletter at that time. So I tried to, as I increased my price, I tried to increase my quality of service. So one of the ideas I had was to write a newsletter where every week I'd write some articles and send it out to anybody who wanted it. The newsletter list had grown to like 300 or some people, but it was taking a good 6 to 8 hours a week to type up articles and make them, edited well and whatnot. And it was just kind of a struggle at that time to add that much work, and especially what looked like it was for free. Now, it was advertising, it built my services. People requested services based on the information that they had read, but then I would have to do those services on top of the time I was taking to do the newsletter. So I now charge kind of between $40 to $60 an hour, depending on the type of service. So I do movement therapies for people, which include kind of like hand massaging on certain issues like ART. I do Graston work. I do some other therapies and whatnot on people in the gym. So if it's a more physically demanding session on me, I'll charge more because I have to have time after that to kind of let my hands recover, and I have to reduce the workload of that so I don't get like arthritic issues in my hands or elbows due to the massage and therapy based work. So it's usually $46 an hour. Then there's other services I perform, like consultations with trainers, for example, ghostwriting. I do online clients. I do programming for kind of templates. I've done worked with other gyms to help with kind of like gym structure for training and for overall clientele. So like kind of like helping somebody start up a gym, basically. So it's a lot of fun, and I enjoy doing that stuff. It also gave me more time to work on a side business where my dad and I weld and make equipment. So we have like therapy rollers that we make for weighted compression therapy, and so we make and sell those. Other things here and there. So it was beneficial to get myself up to the $40 to $60 an hour, and then the other services helped me provide financial increase by doing those services, but not a time constraint where I had to be at the gym at a certain time. So I could do some of the other work kind of when I felt like I wanted to. So that's where I'm at now. Is I do in-person work as part of my income, but that's actually like it's now getting to be less than half the money I make is from in-person training. So I make the rest of my money actually through online clients, programming, and other type of activities like consulting stuff. So it's been a great journey for me in how I've kind of increased and changed my prices. So that's what I first started with that trainer consultation, was explaining my history and all the fears I had, all the what ifs I had along the way, and how it all panned out over time. So one of the things we talked about was, when do they increase price? And the basic bare bone basics of what it really comes down to is when the demand surpasses the supply. So if you've kind of like carved out, say, 30 hours a week or 40 hours a week or 50 hours a week or whatever you're at, even if you're a part-time trainer, maybe it's only 10 or 15 hours or 20 hours, but you carved out the amount of time that you would like to give to training. When your demand is greater than that time, it's now time to increase price. So if you have 20 hours available and you have 25 to 30 hours of kind of constant demand, where maybe you're having to turn people down or you're having to like turn them over to like doing programs rather than in-person stuff. So I've had to do that like a ton of times now. Is I still have a waiting list, thankfully, and I'm blessed for that. I'm very grateful. So I have a waiting list for services, like for personal training and whatnot, to where like if I can't meet with somebody in person, we'll at least make a deal where I'll write them the programming, All of our programming comes with video tutorials on how to perform the exercises, and then I would check in with them via email or text, see how everything was going. So it turns into more of like an online type client when I can't have any more time in person. So that's one of the things that when your demand starts passing your supply, don't say no to people. Don't say I can't. Don't say I don't have time. Find a different way to provide the service. But when the demand is continually above the supply, okay? So if you carve out, say, 40 hours and you almost always, like pretty much always, are having 45 to 50 hours. So I would say 10% over. So if your demand is 10% over your supply ability all the time, then it's time to move up your price, okay? So now it's true that personal training is an up and down type business, like feast and famine. So in the summer, everybody pretty much says, well, I'm fat. This is what I'm going to be for the summer. So then typically the personal training services decrease during the summer. And then like New Year's, obviously everything's really high. So you have to pay attention to if you think it's time for you to increase a price, but you're in a high season, you might want to wait and see what the demand is in a low season. So what's your demand in July and August? If it's still 10% above, then you're probably totally safe to increase prices. But if you're at the end of January, early February, feeling like your demand is way above your supply, hold on a second. So you're in the feast part of the business, so you might need to wait till that dies down a little bit to see what the true number is going to be. If you increase price then, and then all of a sudden, maybe a person or two leaves here or there, then when it becomes the famine part, June, July, August, then you're in trouble. So recognize that personal training has windows. It has like an up and down, it has feast and famine aspect. So make sure that the demand goes above your supply in the famine part. And then you'll probably be ready to increase price. Okay. Then also make sure your quality of service increases when your price increases. So come at the sessions with better knowledge, maybe being more prepared, better ideas that you want to take into the training. Maybe take a more teaching role, explain to people why what they're doing to them, so that way they can know how to do it to themselves. They can just better understand the science and the nuances of what's going on. Have more frequent check-ins, so if you can, check in with the clients once or twice a week. Just say, hey, how you doing? That kind of thing. You can also do client resources, some mass client resources where you write, like a newsletter, maybe write an article, maybe share some information, like a podcast, hint, hint. So just do something that all of your clients can get to, and you can even send it to them directly if you want. But that way, they are more aware of what value you have. So if you're going to charge more, if you're going to increase your price, you have to increase your value. So make sure that when you increase price, you get fired up to do your best and you make some type of improvement in effort, or at least improvement in attention to their programming. Okay? Then what do you do about old clients? If you have had previous clients and you say, well, if I increase the price, should it just be for the new people? What should I do with my older clients? Excuse me. Sorry about that. What should I do with my older clients? There's tons of opinions on this. So you can adjust everyone and have no special pricing, meaning everyone starting, blah, blah, blah date, everybody goes up to this new price. Or you can leave older clients, clients you've had for a longer time, leave them at a price, and then bring in only new clients, at an increased price. If you're uncertain as to whether your demand is surpassing your supply enough, then it would be a good idea to stagger the prices. Keep the old people where they're at, bring in new people at a new price. That softens the blow a little bit. If your demand is way over your supply, like what mine was at the beginning, I just did a full across-the-board increase. And one of the aspects that I like about keeping pricing consistent is that there's no special pricing and no one's going to feel like they're getting gypped or cheated. So if someone finds out that they're paying $50 an hour, but you're charging other people $35 or $40 an hour, how do you think that's going to make that person feel? They're not going to feel really good that they're paying more money for the same service than other people. So this is like when companies have sales. I think it's bullshit in the sense that they can go for like a 20% discount and then somehow still make money even though they were charging me all that money beforehand. So at all times they were charging me 20% more than they even needed to make money. So it just makes me frustrated when people can do sales. So I won't buy from people at full price because they're assholes, in my opinion. If you can afford to give it away cheaper, give it away cheaper. Now, that doesn't mean you have to agree with me. Some people are going to say, well, hey, maybe I overestimated my demand. I have a bunch of extra stuff sitting around, so I want to sell it at a cheaper cost. Maybe somebody else is thinking whatever other things you want. Okay? I'm not saying I'm right. I'm just saying it doesn't feel good. So how do you feel when you get charged more than other people? Usually not good. So if you do stagger your price, be prepared in case someone will say, hey, why am I paying so much when so-and-so doesn't have to? So you can say, look, they've been with me for X number of years. They've bought X number of services. So you can come up with a reason, but make sure you have your reason ready. Make sure you know why you're doing what you're doing. Don't just arbitrarily do it. Be prepared to answer for it. Okay? So then the other aspect we had talked about was what happens if people leave. Well, you might lose some people when you increase price. That's the way it works. So you can think about staggering your prices in services. So in podcast number 304, titled Trainer Education, Diversifying Income Without Spreading Too Thin, you can think about, okay, well, can I offer maybe a higher priced option, but also a cheaper priced option? So if I want to work with people in person and you want to increase that cost, well, maybe you can provide, like I talked about before, just provide programming at a cheaper cost. Say, hey, I might not be able to work with you in person, but I can still write the workouts for you to do. And that's a cheaper cost because it doesn't take me as much time to do that. So you can think of staggering your services, thinking of different levels of services, things like that. Also, think of if someone leaves as motivation. So usually you're increasing price because you need something to change. So if you're stressed and burning out, you need to change something. So if that's like in this person's case, when we did the consultation, they were extremely stressed. They're absolutely at their end, and they've lost the passion for what they do. And they're saying, I need help before I just kind of lose it and quit, or before people can start seeing that I'm no longer really into it, before I lose my shit and yell at somebody, for the next person who doesn't follow the diet that they begged me for, that kind of thing. So if they're stressed and burned out, then something needs to change. So you may have a fear of that change. Like, what if someone leaves? What if my old clients get mad? What if new people can't afford it? You can play the what if game forever. But ask yourself this: what if things stay the same? Remember that if you change nothing, nothing changes. If you're miserable now and you change nothing, you will stay miserable. If you're miserable now and you change something and it doesn't work out, then you'll be miserable. But you're already miserable. However, if you change something, it allows the possibility for things to work out. And then all of a sudden you can have the happiness, you can have life a little more directly the way that you'd want it. So, find a way to make a change and then make it. And recognize that nothing is permanent. So if you try something and it doesn't work out, just switch and move on to something else. So nothing you do today has to stay there tomorrow. So if you change your prices and it doesn't work, just change them right back. But hey, what the hell? You had to give it a try, right? So that is some information to think of when you're thinking about increasing prices. Should I increase my price? If the demand has passed the supply, meaning that you have more people wanting to work with you than you have time to work with them, and that's even true in the most famine part of the time of the business, then it's probably time to increase. Just make sure that when you do increase, you increase the quality of your service when you increase the price. You can stagger the pricing increases if you want to protect old clients from leaving. And if somebody does leave, just remember that by diversifying your income, by providing multiple layers of service at multiple costs, you can buffer some of that loss. Okay? So, if you're a trainer and you have any questions or any needs, please reach out to us. Our email is brutalironjim@gmail.com, and we'll be happy to help. So, we do consultations, we do ghost training, we do whatever you need to make your career better and more enjoyable. So, like I said, I've been doing this for 18 years now. Yeah, it is my sole source of income. I love it. It's fun. It's a great thing to do. There are challenges absolutely along the way at all times. So if you get stuck on one of those challenges and you can't find your way past it, email us at brutalironjim@gmail.com and we'll help. Okay? Cool. So hopefully this was helpful, gave you some good thoughts and something you can build from. If you like the podcast, please share it with family and friends. The more people we help, the happier the world will be. Also, if you like this information, you can find more from us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at Brutal Iron Gym. And if you have any questions, feedback, or suggestions, we'd love to hear from you. The podcast is for you, so we know what you want to learn about. You can tell us at our email at brutalironjim@gmail.com. As always, I hope this was helpful, and thank you for listening. And thank you for watching.